I was introduced to a young entrepreneur, and she started the company with $2,500 and is an amazing success story. She and her sister own this jewelry company. Over the years, I was a resource for her, and she called me in December and said, "Hey, I hear you're hanging up your media days." And I said, "Yeah." Well, long story short, I'm the co-CEO of her company.
A perennial is someone that does not sit with their demographic. They're not Gen X, they're not Gen Z, they're not boomers, they're not whatever the next generation is. They're constantly the same. They're curious about the world on an ongoing basis. They are lifetime learners, and they bloom every season with every new thing. And
Love
so
that.
those are the kind of people that you want to hang out with.
Talk about lifetime learners. This is a 2-for-1 episode with two of them. Two more Eddie and Ozzie Award winners being inducted in the Folio Hall of Fame in October as top achievers in publishing and digital media. Hey, it's E.B. Moss, and this is another episode of Insider Interviews, where you get the insider scoop on the business of media, marketing, and advertising. The double scoop you're getting here is first from Doug Olson, the former president of Meredith, who launched things like their huge alignment with Walmart and Better Homes and Gardens that's still around. And FYI, that company's now all part of the newly rebranded People Inc., whose CEO will be in the next Hall of Fame episode coming out on Insider Interviews. But first, you're going to love how Doug has reinvented himself as COO of a huge social media phenomenon in online jewelry shopping. Then you'll hear from David Adler, who, right out of college, launched Washington Dossier. It was a big, buzzy magazine about who's who in the DC scene. Then he became a who's who himself in the PR industry and founded the Bible of event marketing, BizBash. Well, he's reinvented himself again with a platform called Gathering Point. And stick around to find out exactly why he's involved in the box office smash out now called The Roses with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman. So stay put for this twofer, the second in my series of profiles with Hall of Famers, and don't miss the previous episode with Jim McKelvey, who founded a little something called Square, which completely transformed mobile payments. Anyway, let's start with Doug. Doug Olson, first of all, congratulations. You are in the Hall of Fame for the Folio Awards.
Well, thank you very much. It's kind of amazing. It sounds kind of weird, actually.
Well, you've had a pretty illustrious career, and I know that you have positively impacted a lot of people. So I just wanted to take advantage of having you in the room. I chatted with you a little bit about the Eddie and Ozzie Awards, which are for editorial and design excellence. But I wanted to do a little bit of a drill down into basically what led you to be an award winner. Can you describe a little bit of your career path?
Sure. Well, I started out, believe it or not, as a tech person. Back then, they called it a programmer, not a developer, because developers are a lot cooler than programmers. But I did that for a couple of years and very quickly decided, you know what, this is great, but I want to get into some kind of leadership role. So I started out in the human resource and benefit outsourcing world. A very small company in Des Moines, Iowa, that was acquired by ADP, the big payroll behemoth.
Right.
And at that point, I stayed for a couple of years and really figured out quickly that ADP had a much different business model than I was used to. So I was recruited to go to Meredith Corporation to work for a guy by the name of Steve Lacy, the former CEO and chairman of the board. He brought me into Meredith Corporation when we were kind of an unknown media company before we reached up and grabbed Time Inc. and a bunch of other companies along the way. So he was the one that gave me the big chance, put me in charge of things that I probably didn't deserve because I was fairly inexperienced at the time, but was able to lead some amazing people. I didn't know anything about media. I sat in my very first meeting with a rate-based discussion around Better Homes and Gardens, and they had 7.6 million subscribers, and I was losing my mind because it's like, why don't we want to get to 8 million? Why don't we set that goal for ourselves? And the consumer marketing people kept telling me, no, 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 the advertisers won't pay for any more than 7.6. So we don't want to
What?
deliver 8 million. We don't want to over deliver. We only want to deliver 7.6 million.
What?
So anyway, we did a lot of great acquisitions, acquired a lot of brands, a lot of really good talent along the way. And
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here talking to you is it went fairly well.
Yeah. And did you get over 7.6 million?
We did not. We did.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we made a lot of other properties bigger
Additional titles.
and branded bigger through other ways, but we tried a lot of things. And you may have heard of our brand licensing program at Walmart that I was part of, a huge program at Walmart under the Better Homes and Gardens brand. So we did a lot of other business opportunities other than just selling magazines to people.
And then with the Walmart program, it's like you were omnichannel as well. So you went from in book to in store and online, I'm guessing. Talk
Yes.
a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was tough back then because you had a lot of people that were purists in the print form, very protective of the brand. And obviously, on the digital side, you had people that had very little loyalty to the brand and were looking for eyeballs. And then you get into something like Walmart, where obviously they have a business model and really like to do things their own way. And we had to take what we thought was one of the better brands in the world and try to work in the retail space. So a lot of discussions. First internally, getting our people that worked on the brand comfortable that we weren't going to do anything bad to it. We're only going to try to enhance it, and it was going to be okay. And to their credit, they all jumped on board, and there were certain products that were put out that they didn't feel like were on brand, and so we worked with our friends at Walmart and kept refining the program, and every year it got better, and it became a very, very large program there, obviously, and a big revenue stream for the company.
So what was in it for the advertisers or the sponsors? It was in-store signage, it was in book. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, the advertisers benefited tremendously from the brand awareness. Like you said, the things you rattled off. Also, we put a subscription card in every package where people could get a subscription to the magazine. We did a lot of things with them and some of their suppliers as far as advertising programs go. And, they all want to please Walmart, obviously, is the biggest retailer in the world. And so it really drew a bunch of us together that, did business together before, but not nearly as passionately as we did surrounding the Walmart opportunities.
So now if we move current from the grassroots and from your roots, and we look at what's happening today with publishing, is there any hope for print publications to remain viable?
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be some longer term players in this space. Some of the big organizations decided a long time ago that they didn't have the stomach to wait this thing out and kind of jumped ahead, if you will. And it's worked out pretty well for them. You've got others that, like we did at Meredith, we tried to straddle both sides. We tried to have a big digital footprint, which we did with people and all recipes and some of the big brands there. We had very large digital audiences. But on the magazine side, we continued to try to keep them relevant. In a lot of cases, there's still big audiences out there. They're just not willing to pay what they used to for a subscription. And I think there's some amazing brands and that's going to be around for a long, long time. Now, is the pool smaller? Absolutely. Have companies in some cases given up a little early? In my opinion, yes. But everyone's got to make their own decisions. But I think there's still a lot of passionate people out there that like that tactile feel and like the fact that no one forces you to turn it off when you're taking off an airplane and things like that. So I think it's smaller for sure in the future, but I don't think it goes away.
Good. I for one, am a big fan. So at a certain point, Meredith also owned a lot of the Time Inc. properties, including Time Magazine. And I talk a lot about news on this podcast and the importance of advertisers supporting the news media. Any perspective about the conflict in their thinking around, quote, brand safety or brand suitability?
Yeah,
Throwing you a curveball.
no, that's a hard one, but I'll give you my honest opinion on it. Is that
Yeah.
um, a lot of the news outlets that have chosen a side in this political divide that we live in is a really dangerous place for brands. It really is. They don't want to have 51% of the country mad at them or 49% of the country mad at them, and so it's tough. And that's why I think you're seeing these smaller alternate places for news becoming very popular because people are gravitating to what they like and people they want to hang out with and people that fascinate them. So absolutely, I think advertisers got to get behind some things and they have to pick what's right for them and their brand.
Yeah.
In some cases, they're okay with 49% of the country not buying their products anymore. But I think the smart ones are looking for places that are truly as independent as possible. And one day, the person may talk about how they like one policy, and the next day they talk about the other side's policy that they enjoy. In the last 25 years in the media space, the biggest change is that there really are limited options on independence in news.
I guess you have to stay in it to hopefully win it. And you're not staying in it so much anymore, are you, Doug? What are you doing with yourself these days when you're not on the golf course?
Well, I was very fortunate through a friend about 6 or 7 years ago to be introduced to a young entrepreneur of a jewelry company in Alabama.
Really?
And she started the company with $2,500 and is an amazing success story. She and her sister own this jewelry company, and the TikTok's a big part of their world. They have surprise and delight reveals on TikTok with rings and bracelets and necklaces. Over the years, she would call and ask about situations, say, hey, my company is now at 25 employees. Now it's at 50. Now it's at 100. I'm at 50 million. I'm at 100 million. I'm at 150 million. And so I was a resource for her. And she called me in December and said, hey, I hear you're hanging up your media days. And I said, yeah, I'm going to either go golfing or do a lot of traveling and try to find something that keeps me semi-occupied. And long story short, I'm the co-CEO of her company. She is focusing on products, packaging, and the whole reveal process that happens on the social media platforms. And I'm helping run what I'm going to call the business part of the company.
Amazing. Can you name names? What's the company?
The company is called Bomb Party. So HR, benefits, finance, legal, the warehouse. So I have the back office, let's say. And like I said, very, very successful, amazing ownership group. The two sisters, again, started this thing with no money. And there's a lot of great people there. They recruited some great leaders in there. And, now we're just...
including you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I'm just kind of getting the band, pointed in the right direction. And they're playing all the sweet music, so...
But it's perfect for you because you came from tech, you came from HR, you came from president of a huge media company. So you are the man for the current Bomb Party job. I love it.
I'm having a blast. I got to say, I've had more fun in the last 6 months than I have in the last 6 years. And that's the thing. People are looking for ways to go have fun. And this is just pure fun, surprise, and delight. So
that's good. And I need to know, is there a friends and family discount for my next jewelry?
Well, you never know. If you send me your address, something may find its way to you.
Really? Talk about a surprise and reveal. What's so interesting is that another episode from another Hall of Famer with you for the Folio Awards is Jim McKelvey, the co-inventor of Square. And Jim's new venture is trying to remove plastics from baby diapers. And he's also creating a new kind of heat map analysis of brand suitability. So, just because you have been successful in one role doesn't mean that there's not life after that role. So Doug Olson, I hope that this will be a surprisingly delightful segment for people because I'm certainly inspired. Thanks for joining.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate all the great questions. And anytime I can help, let me know. And you may receive something in the mail if you send me an address.
Okay. All right. Take care. I'm talking to the, we'll call him polymathic Perennial, David Adler. So good to see you.
It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining. This was part of an interview that we did about you winning a Folio Award and being now in the Hall of Fame. And I know that you won your digital publishing Folio Awards back in 2015. Let's talk a little bit about what's changed in the industry and what you're up to now. And you're doing a lot now, David.
Yeah, well, I totally love trying new things. So even as the editor of my yearbook in college, I was the only one that added scratch and sniff and records inside the yearbook.
Seriously?
And decided not to use type. I used handwriting as my typesetting. It wasn't the best work I ever did, but it was fun to experiment. And I
Smells
still go
like
back.
teen.
Well,
what was
sort of
that?
like you sort of said, this school smell, it was a lot of pot smells, really.
Oh, man.
And then I started this magazine called Washington Dossier in Washington Society magazine. Did that for 12 years. People thought I was a maitre d' because I would come home in black tie every night, and they didn't know what the hell I was doing when I was 21. And I sold that when I was 30, and then got headhunted to move to New York City to work for Robert Maxwell Communications, that owned Macmillan.
Yes.
So I did, my first thing was Headway Communications with him, where I learned all about custom publishing. So I did a lot of custom publishing with him. I pitched the first Trump magazine and pitched it to Donald Trump, and he said, Trump likes this. But then he tried to hire me rather than the company, so thank God I didn't get near that. and then I also would invite him a lot to the Maxwell yacht. So I introduced him, I think I was the one that introduced him to David Pecker, back when Pecker was running his company before Inquirer. And then I stayed there for a little while, and then worked at Primedia as head of corporate communications.
Sure.
Worked about 10 years, and then started BizBash in 2000.
Love BizBash.
It's really the trade magazine for the event industry.
Yeah, sure. I read that all the time.
We took events from the Rolodex of the planner to the experience. So we were at the beginning of the experience revolution. And what I would do is go into an event and say who did what. So I created a database of all the vendors so that you were able to shop for who did you need for the, people used it. And then we started really doing very high-end editorial about it. And we would pick the top 100 events in New York, the top 100 events in Chicago, and then we would pick the top caterers. And it turned out that, after 2007, when the iPhone came out, everybody was an event planner and a media company.
Yeah.
So the events became bigger budget, and our view on things became very important, and it became a bigger business. And so for 25 years, I did that magazine and that website and trade shows and the whole mix. And then I sold it in 2019, stayed with them for a few years. Okay. And now I've started a new media company and a new concept called GatheringPoint.News, which is a media company for the new era, which we're starting to do broadcasting, and we do stories. I am able to, with the help of AI, I'm able to not quadruple, but instead of having 50 people working for me, I can do 90% of it myself.
So,
and it's amazing.
I think I preface this by saying that you're perennial, which is a word that I stole from you. Can you explain why I used that word?
A perennial is someone that does not sit with their demographic. They're not Gen X, they're not Gen Z, they're not boomers, they're not whatever the next generation is. They're constantly the same. They're curious about the world on an ongoing basis. They are lifetime learners, and they bloom every season with every new thing. And so those are the kind of people that you want to hang out with.
Yeah.
And I can tell that you are a perennial.
Thank you.
You wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you're not. And you can tell in a second that most people don't fit into their category. Most people are the same as they were when they were 2 years old as they are today, in many cases, right? There's certain things that are always
so
the same.
True.
And so I found that you have to accept it. I mean, I don't feel the least bit aging.
Agree.
And I'm also not going to let these, young kids
By
one
golly.
up me on this new technology.
All right, so you do have your finger on the pulse. You're passionate about learning and adopting, being an early adopter of everything. But
Yeah.
you mentioned to me that you've kind of tamed AI. Tell me the top 3 things, aside from your gathering publication, how you're applying AI. What are your favorite tricks and tools?
I use it as my underlord, not as my overlord, number one.
Okay.
I become an expert at prompting and an expert at playing one against the other. I play Claude against
Yes.
ChatGPT,
Yes,
and I
me
talk
as well.
to it each way. I tell it, I have a writing style that I use, and my writing style is page 6 meets Vanity Fair. And I go to it and I say, never, ever, ever give me a bullet point. Never, ever give me a headline that looks with an emoji. And
Yes.
I want you to emulate Clay Felker and how he
Your
would be
hero.
the editor of New York Magazine. And I yell at it all the time. and I use it for the word part of it, and then I use it for the graphics part of it.
Yeah.
And there's a program called Notebook LM.
Yes.
Which
I just
actually
did an
take-
episode on that, by the way,
Oh,
my previous
it's-
episode.
I use it all the time, not to necessarily use, but to check my work.
Oh,
Because,
okay.
Because if it makes sense, then I'm on the right track. If it doesn't, then that means they didn't understand what I said. And so I use that a lot to sort of, not necessarily as a podcast thing, but as a way
vet
to check
you,
myself.
I
To
see.
vet me.
But I discovered it via its excellent, unfortunately, production of synthetic voice and
Yes.
interpreting content, reframing it through synthetic voices, and observing the takeaways from that content and putting it into conversation. Blew me away, so I had to do a whole episode on that. I'll add a link to that in the show notes.
feels
Anyway, it's
real.
all about you.
It feels real.
It does.
That's what I love about it. It's got the fumfering and all that
Yeah.
you normally have in a conversation.
That's right.
And people, I actually did a presentation deck using Gamma. I don't know if you use Gamma as a presentation tool.
Not
And
yet.
I had a whole thing I was presented, and then I said I just played the Notebook LM, and the people got it better than I could pitch it. And that's why I like my Vanity Fair style. It really helps a lot when everything is positioned that way. I also like to add my own personal context into everything that I write.
Okay.
So if there's something that I know, I say, hey, I did that when I was blah, 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 or I remember that. So I'm trying to add always a personal note so it doesn't feel like it's automated or a robot.
Yeah.
And that's a very important thing. Now, on the visual side, I've been doing things like for an event, for example. I've been designing hors d'oeuvres for an
Hors
event.
d'oeuvres, like the
Hors
food,
d'oeuvres.
appetizer.
Like the food, because when you think about it, if you go to an event, you talk about last mile of marketing.
Yeah.
The last 6 inches of marketing is an hors d'oeuvre tray.
What now?
The last 6 inches of marketing, like if somebody's passing out an hors d'oeuvre tray and you're at a conference
Yeah.
and you want to promote something, you can create an hors d'oeuvre that represents that. Like I've done something on the presidents for Watergate, for example. And I would have a flight of hors d'oeuvres that would be cherry trees representing President Washington. And I got the favorite foods of the presidents, and they were delivered in flights like a performance, so that you're taking an event and you're adding a whole nother level of content to it. And so you can do that with a brand too. I mean,
Yeah.
a Nike shoe, for example, an activation for Nike, and why not, have little Nike hors d'oeuvres? But the design is done with using the help of AI.
I see.
So I'm using it for design purposes. I'm using it for graphics, and just in the last few months, the graphics capability has gone through the roof in terms of AI.
No, the other word I attributed to you was polymath, because now, thanks to your dad's prolific content creation, fast forward, you and your brother are also in the pictures. Talk about pictures and movies.
Yeah. So I'm in the lucky, as I mentioned, I am in the lucky sperm business because I am not responsible for it, but my father was a novelist. He wrote 50 novels and 100 short stories. He wrote a book called The War of the Roses, another one that was made into
Sure.
a movie called Random Hearts with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
And he wrote like lots of crime and Washington stories, and we're in the process of trying to resell a lot of that. And so they made a remake of War of the Roses, and it's now called The Roses, and it's Disney Searchlight.
Okay.
And it stars Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman, Kate McKinnon,
And Janney?
Allison Janney, and a bunch of other stars.
Brilliant.
There's a preview already that's got gazillions of downloads. It's playing in every movie theater now with the movies that are just coming out, and we think it's going to be probably the biggest movie of the year. And it's about a couple that's having problems, and you have to see whether they resolve them or not.
Now, is that based on your real history?
Nothing. My father actually went to a dinner party when we had Washington Dossier, because I worked with my mother on it as well. And he sat next to a guy that said he had to be home by midnight or else he'll lose the house. It was a real estate thing. And so my father constructed a whole story based on that. And it became War of the Roses in 1981. He wrote it. Came out at the first movie in 89. And now in 2025, the remake is being made.
That's
so
the
he's
coolest
smiling
thing.
from heaven. Yeah.
Wow. Real quick, as they say in Jeopardy, final answer. What are you doing now that you absolutely love doing that's related to media and marketing?
Oh, I get up at 4:00 in the morning to write stories for my Gathering Point news.
Oh.
And I am loving it. One thing I'm doing on the Gathering Point is I'm using avatars. Like there's a guy by the name of Jack Morton. It's a big...
Sure. Jack Morton Events?
Jack Morton Events.
Yeah.
So every weekend I do this thing called the Weekend Wisdom Bank. And I decided, okay, I would love to have interviewed Jack Morton. So basically, I did a history of him and a story, but then I created an avatar with him talking. And it's very interesting. And I labeled it as, this is a performance, this is not real. I even had him pitch buying a subscription to gatheringpoint.news at the end. And I'm using historical people for the stories to see if it brings it to life. And I'm experimenting with that stuff. I mean, we're in an era of total experimentation.
Yes.
So you can get away with it, and I always believe in the Tina Brown comment that you're going to make lots of mistakes in publishing, and you're going to do things that are good taste and bad taste, and you got to keep trying. And so that's what I'm doing. I don't know if it'll work or not, but it was sort of fun to create it, and it's kind of like what I do. Also, I've done the first musical book review. So I created a song as a book review, as opposed to a standard book review. So I took a book. I wrote everything I know about it, what I thought about it. I put it into this program called Suno, and I was able to create a real full-time song. So I'm trying to do new things because I believe that everything we're doing is about neuroscience now.
Yes.
And that how do you stimulate the brain?
Right.
And so you try new things, and that's what creativity is about. And so I am trying new things. You and I think the same way. It's kind of like, there's a certain gene, I think.
I take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh. Well, you have just solidified the through line of this episode of Insider Interviews. Hall of Famers from the Folio Awards, reinventing themselves, finger on the pulse, kind of changing the world in a lot of ways. So David Adler, thanks for being my top 3 in the Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you.
Well, I hope you got some good insider scoop from this episode of Insider Interviews with me, E.B. Moss. If you enjoyed this content, please feel free to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/mossappeal. And I hope you'll follow Insider Interviews on social media and let me know if you have a question or a suggestion for a next stellar guest in media, marketing, and advertising. Speaking of stellar, my theme music was composed and performed by the incomparable Grammy-winning John Clayton. If I can help you with your company's podcast, please find me at mossappeal.com. Thanks again for listening.